Hello and welcome to lesson number 13, where we'll create a text box that supports auto-completion. Now this can be used for lots and lots of different things, but usually auto-completion is a feature that really helps out with the user experience when it comes to filling in forms, right? So imagine you have to fill in your country, right? And you start typing, and it would be useful to immediately, as you type, get a list of countries that match whatever it is you typed. Well, this is what we're gonna create in this lesson. So here we have our text box. Currently it doesn't do anything. And coming back to the markup, we see that it's very simple. It's an input type text in a form. It has an ID, a placeholder, and below that is an UL with an ID of autocomplete results. This is the element that we're going to populate with the various results we're going to get from autocompletion. So let's start our scripts file by declaring a couple of variables. We're going to get our actual input, we're going to get the results, and then we're going to specify our country list, and that's about it for now. So let's actually document our step here. Next up, we should focus the input when the page loads. So we say target input dot focus, and that, whenever we refresh now, the cursor is always in there. Next up, we have to add an event listener for the key up. So whenever we press a key into the input, we start comparing what we typed with what we have in our countries array. We're going to say target input, add event listener on key up. We execute the following function. Now, before we move on, we're going to need some useful key codes here. And these are 13 for enter, 38 arrow up, 40 arrow down. You'll see why we need these in just a little bit. Now, we're going to start by doing this results plural dot inner HTML. Now we'll reset this. So basically, if there were results previously shown, we're gonna remove those. Next, we're gonna hide the results element. And for that, we're actually gonna write a function to which we can just pass in a parameter, and it's gonna either show it or hide it. And the function is called toggle results, and we're gonna say hide. So let's go ahead and write that function. And that function looks something like this. So action is either show or hide. And if the action is show, then we're going to get the results. We're going to add the class of visible. Otherwise, if the action is hide, we're going to remove the class of visible. Very, very simple. Now we're going to say if this dot value dot length is higher than 0, then. So what exactly does this mean? Well, this is an object, and it refers to target input in this case. So when we're doing this target input add event listener, we can actually use this object to reference target input. And it allows us to write code more elegantly and more efficiently. So if the value that we typed in that input has a length that's higher than 0, which means if we type something, basically, then we're going to do the following. Matches equals to get matches this dot value. Now we have two unknowns here. Matches is actually a variable that we need to define, and it's an array. So matches equals array. And get matches is a function that we need to write, and that function will actually compare the value that we just typed with all the items in the array, and it's going to return an array of the items that match the value that we just typed. Maybe it sounds a bit confusing, but if you take a close look to the code, you'll see that it's actually very, very simple. So let's go ahead and write that get matches function. Now that function looks something like this. We're defining a match list array, And then we're parsing the country list array, which means we're going in a loop, in a for loop, from 0 to the last item. And then we're checking if the item to lowercase, index of, input text to lowercase, input text being this bit. So if the index of is different than -1, which means if the value that we typed in the text box is contained within that particular item from the country array. Well, in that case, we're gonna do match list push that country list. We're populating the match list array with that country's name. And then we return match list. So now, coming back here, we'll do this. Matches dot length is higher than 0, which means if we have some country names returned by our function, then we're going to say display matches. Now, display matches is a function that we're going to write now, which will populate our autocomplete results and then show it. So what we're doing here basically is we're doing a while loop, and we're going through the entire match list array. Every single item will be appended as a list item with a class of result to the results element, which in our case is this UL. Then what we do is we toggle the results like this, or we show the results. So let's see if it works. Okay, let's do A, and you can already see that we have a few countries here: Albania, Colombia, Cuba, pretty much all the countries that contain the letter A. If I do AL, it shows me all the countries that have A and L. Albania, Nepal, Wales, and so on. And if I do ALB, it just shows me Albania. Let's do another one. Let's do Nepal. Let's do Romania. So as you can see, the script works beautifully. Now, what I want to do is to have a little bit more control over that list when using my keyboard. So for example, I want to be able to move through my results with the up and down arrow keys. And then when I hit enter, I want to fill my text box with that value. So let's make that happen. And we're going to start right here in our display matches function. We're going to say the first child gets a class of highlighted. And for this, we're going to say move cursor, results cursor. Again, two unknowns. Now, results cursor is a variable that we're going to initialize here. That should be equal initially to 0. And move cursor is a function that we're going to write now. Now, the move cursor function will basically move that highlighted class up or down depending on which key I press. So what we're doing is basically we're going through all of our results, we're removing the class of highlighted from all of them, and we're adding that one only on our position. So now, refresh. You can see that when I type something, the cursor or the highlight is on the very first item. Now, let's see what we can do about when we press the up and down arrow keys. And the place to write that code is right here in the key up event listener. So here we're going to say if results class list contains visible, so if there are results that are being shown, then we're going to do a switch. And a switch is a much more elegant form of writing multiple if-else statements. So we're going to do switch, and the criteria is going to be event.keycode, and then we're going to say case 13. We're going to have our block of code, and then we're going to have break. Case 38, again, block of code, and then break. And finally, case 40, same deal. Okay, now what this means basically is check the event key code. If it's 13, execute the following. If it's 38, execute the following. And the same goes for 40. Now, this is where this comment comes in. You can see that 13 means enter, in which case I want to copy or I want to fill in my text box with the value that I've just highlighted. 38 and 40 arrow up and respectively down. So, in the case of an enter, I want to do the following. Target input value equals results, children, results cursor, inner HTML. Well, results is our UL. Children means each individual list item. Result cursor is the position that's highlighted. And inner HTML basically means the text within that list item. That's all there is, really. So we're taking this value and we're assigning it to the target input value. So let's see that in action. Let's type Romania. If I hit enter, you can see that the page refreshed there. And that's because this is a form. Pressing enter in that form will automatically submit it and the page refreshes. But we don't want that. To prevent it, we're going to go right here and we're going to add event listener for the input key down. So we're going to say target input, add event listener, key down, function, and we're going to say if event key code equals 13, or if we pressed enter, we're going to say event.prevent default. And that, if we type Romania again, hit enter, for some reason this still doesn't work. So what's going on here? So add event listener, key down, function, sorry, I forgot to include the event here. Okay, let's do a refresh. So Romania, hit enter, and we now populate the text box. Let's do another test, Albania, enter. Okay, but when I hit enter, I want to actually hide this results element. So here we're going to say toggle results, hide, and also let's reset the cursor to 0. Okay, refresh. Let's try that again. Perfect. All right, now let's see about moving up and down in this list. On 38, which is arrow up, means we have to go up. We'll simply say if results cursor is higher than 0, then we'll simply do results cursor minus minus, and we're going to move the cursor to the new results cursor. Let's see, Albania, arrow up. Okay, let's actually do the arrow down first. Here we're going to say if results cursor is smaller than matches dot length minus 1, then we'll do results cursor plus plus and move cursor results cursor. Okay, let's do it again. So now when we hit the arrow down key, we can see that our cursor, well, apart from this pesky autocomplete thing from the browser, but when we hit the up and down arrow keys, you can see that we can cycle between our results, and hitting enter on one of them will fill that into our text box. And that's about it for this lesson. It's time to move on to our third demo. And I think that one is going to be pretty popular because it is a content slider. So I'll see you in the next lesson.